Hey, good afternoon, everybody. The reason I'm laughing is today's recipe has a story that goes with it. You may have noticed from the title that this recipe contains coconut oil. Now, a friend of mine had been at me for quite a while, about all the reading he'd done on the internet, about all the virtues of coconut oil, and on and on and on, till finally I broke down and bought some. And when we opened the container and I tried some and I had him try some, his comment was, "It tastes like coconuts." So that may have been the reaction of many of you who got, I won't say taken in, because, people have confused the fact that vegans like this. Vegans like this because they can't eat butter. If you compare this gram for gram, there's actually more saturated fat in coconut oil than there is in butter, but people automatically think that if it's, for vegetarians or vegans, it must be like really good for you. Although this stuff, well, no offense, if you eat like all of this, will clog up your arteries and do you in pretty quickly. But anyways, so I was kind of forced to come up with a recipe where I could use this massive container of coconut oil instead of giving it to the poor or something. So I fiddled around and did a couple of tests and actually came up with a Bran muffin recipe made with coconut oil that actually tastes quite good. This is also quite nutritious by virtue of the organic Blackstrap Molasses, and this stuff is really good for you. It's got a ton of minerals in it, especially potassium, because for those of us who may not eat as many vegetables as we should, you need your potassium, and this is a good way to get it, and a whole bunch of other trace minerals. And fiber is always good for you. So I got a really full counter, but I'll get that organized pretty quick. Now the real star of this recipe is not the coconut oil, it's these little critters here. I discovered these by accident a while ago, and if you make muffins on a regular basis or cupcakes, you will notice that you always end up seeming to lose like this much of it around the edges. These things cost a little bit more. I cost them out less than 2 cents a cup. And the nice part is they come clean away. You get all your muffin. Okay, and I'll show you that when we're finished, and that alone for me personally is well worth the cost. Okay, now I have this organized in a particular order. Here's the list of ingredients. And the reason I'm mixing it up this way, you can, do what you want. If you feel that you want to just throw everything in the bowl, go ahead. Word of caution, it probably won't turn out. The reason I'm doing it this way is that if you follow this sequence, you will get the best possible result. And as usual, start with preheating your oven. The first step is to combine your dry ingredients, which are the flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt, all in a bowl here. So measure your flour into the bowl first. I do keep a small cup inside my flour container so I don't have to be hunting around. Then add the rest of it. These are leavening agents, so if it's not completely accurate, you got a little bit more or less, don't worry about it. As long as your timing is good when you mix in the wet ingredients, it'll all come out good. Oh yeah, and if you do happen to keep baking soda in your fridge to absorb odors, don't be tempted to use that, because Lord knows what these things will taste like after, okay? Fish or onions or who knows what. By all means, please do date your baking powder. The stuff is only good for about a year after you open it. And you'll see people like pulling out containers out of their cupboards like 3-4 years old and they expect it to work. I don't think so. So I got a nice big spoon here. Just mix that up briefly. Set it to the side. I like to measure the bran first. Now, if you got lots of glass cups, by all means measure the milk first. The reason I do it this way is that I don't have to wash and dry this if I measure the milk first. You might notice that I've got ingredients disappearing off the counter. It's a good habit as you measure stuff, put it away after. It leaves your workspace far less cluttered and you're less likely to measure something twice if you get distracted. Now, I got my brown sugar in a Ziploc. I know they sell little gadgets to keep it moist. I found this the absolute easiest way to do it, to keep it from drying out. So what I do is I just grab my cup, push it into the sugar, and flatten it from the outside. That way I don't have to wash my hands after. So that's packed. Put that in there, get rid of this. Add the vanilla. Now if you're using natural, which I always do, shake it up first. Just pour that over the sugar. Get your milk and just pour that in. I do it from the side lowered in, because if it runs down the cup, it doesn't go all over the counter. So now just get a spatula and mix that in a bit. I'm going to try not to block my shots today. Maybe I'll wind up ambidextrous if I shoot enough videos this way. So now throw in your Bran buds. You probably could use regular Bran too. I just tested it with this stuff. It's because of what I had in the house. Now you're going to let this rest and soak up the milk for at least 10 minutes. If you got ahead of yourself and you got your oven heated up and everything ready to go and you just throw the milk in and you mix it up right away, the Bran does not have enough time to absorb the milk, and you're going to get muffins that have like little hard crunchy bits in them. So unless you actually are looking for that texture, just let it sit for a bit. You can do other stuff in the meantime. Namely, get your muffin tins ready. And these muffin tins are like really old. I think one time long ago they were actually non-stick, but those days have passed. You may have noticed I have not washed my measuring cup. Reason for that is it's good to mix stuff in, and provided it hasn't been on the counter for too long, the milk won't have had time to go bad. So crack your eggs in there and just beat those up with a fork briefly. Good enough. Set that aside for a minute. I got a bowl here because I'm going to have to melt this in the microwave. If you've never seen coconut oil before, it is a solid at room temperature. And I'm going to use a knife for this. And you can hear it's getting kind of gushy because it's summertime and it's fairly warm. And if you let it get too hot, you'll probably have to use a spoon because it'll melt on you in a warm room. This stuff is supposed to be really good for your skin. Before I came up with the muffin recipe, I was contemplating just like rubbing it on my belly. But I'm not doing that on YouTube, okay? I don't think you get enough clicks for that. Okay, so or is that what those private paid subscriptions are for, eh? Anyways, back to the coconut oil. You just want this to melt. You do not want it too hot because you don't want it to cook the eggs, okay? So I'm just going to heat this at 10 or 15 second bursts and keep an eye on it just till it's melted. While that's melting, what you can do to further reduce the risk of the eggs cooking is put in your molasses first into the eggs. This doesn't have to be super accurate. This stuff is really thick. A little more, a little less. And I will borrow the spatula from the Bran for a minute. You gotta remember, yeah, that counter's gotta get wiped, don't worry about it. Even though it looks really messy, all these ingredients are gonna mix together anyways. So even if you use this, you know, to scrape out your cup and then put it back in the bowl, if you get a little molasses in the Bran early, oh well, you know. Don't be one of these people that has like a cup for this and a cup for that, because you're going to get so discouraged by the dishes you have to do, you won't want to do this very much. Okay, so that was in for a total of all of, I think, 30 seconds. So whip the molasses with the eggs. And I think it's time to just switch straight to the spatula. And again, if I get a couple of flecks of bran in here early, no problem. The only thing you don't want to do is make sure that your leavening agents, like the baking soda and the baking powder, meet the wet too early, because then you just lose lift that you cannot get back after. This isn't like yeast bread, where you can just let it keep sitting and it'll recover. Now this container just feels warm, so that is not going to cook the eggs. You can see that clear went in. And if you're worried about half a cup of saturated fat in the recipe, I actually did the calories on this on a spreadsheet, and I was thinking of calling them killer muffins because they came out to 187 calories a muffin, and I'll leave that to your own research if you don't recognize that reference. But they only had 6.4 grams of fat per muffin. So if you want to think of it a different way, these things come pre-buttered from the inside, so you can actually control your calories instead of breaking down and saying, oh good, I'm having a healthy bran muffin and I'm going to like slather butter all over it. Not that anyone's ever done that, eh? Or at least admitted to it much. Good enough. Let's take a look at that. That looks pretty well soaked up. Time to toss this in there. Yeah, the molasses, the brown sugar, and the vanilla all serve, and the salt to a degree, all serve to help to mask the coconut aroma and flavor. So there's just a hint of it, but it's not overpowering. And the last step is to get the dry ingredients and mix it up. But before I do that, I am going to get my raisins ready. Because, as I said prior, your rise starts as soon as wet hits dry. And the last thing you want to do is go, oh no, I forgot the raisins, and let your mix set up and get these little flat muffins after. So that's about a cup. Again, I'm measuring it in the dirty cup, so use a clean one if you feel better about it. Dry should go in what they call additions, which means do not dump it all in at once. So just get a couple of big spoons there. Get your spatula and stir that in, taking particular care to make sure that you get dried bits off the side of the bowl. You still want to be fairly quick about this. The first one should go in fairly fast. You can do 2 or 3. I'll put in like another spoon or 2, and then I'll just dump the rest of the bowl in for the last one. And just toss the rest in. You want to be fairly quick about it. Yeah, because you can hear it and see it. It's starting to thicken up, which is what you want. And there can be a couple of dry bits on the top, not to worry because the raisins are going in now. Okay, so I'm going to just put that down for a second, and I'll go get my trays, and in the meantime, this will thicken up, and you want it to get thick before you start to measure it, or you're going to have problems. Now this is where I switch positions. I'm just going to zoom in on the bowl so you can see exactly what I was talking about. In the brief time it took to get the trays, look at that, see that? Your rise has already started and it's thickened up nicely. It's going to make it a lot easier to put into the cups, but you have to do it right away. So let's see if I can get in here without knocking the camera over. And I'll just do a couple. So you pick up basically what you can get on the spatula and drop it down with a spoon to fill the cup. Don't fuss around, just do that and keep going. I'll do another one in the middle so you can see what I'm talking about here. And turn the camera off and just get to it because time's a wasting on these things. Okay, so that much. Now you may notice that there are a couple of these where one muffin is slightly less fortunate than its neighbor, but that's life. And it's all gone. Okay? Now, if you do want to borrow from one cup to the other, that's your decision, but seriously be fast about it or else they won't come out, okay? Do wipe the little bits off, either with a clean finger or a paper towel, because if you don't, they will burn in the oven and you'll think your muffins are burning, and they're not. Okay, so get these in 20 to 25 minutes. I do the full 25, and I'll see you back then. It's been 25 minutes, so just turn off the oven quick, open the door, so I'll leave the light on so you can see them in there. And I'll just take this right off. Hope this doesn't fog up in here. And you can see how nice those look. Alright, they did come out quite well. They look slightly less glamorous on the top of the stove. And you can see over here, that is one of the burnt on bits I was talking about. I wiped off most of it so it didn't smoke or anything. So what you do is let these rest first in the containers for a few minutes. If you turn them out onto the wire rack immediately, they may flatten, so you want to give them a couple of minutes to set up in the containers, and then I'll transfer them out onto the counter. So it's been a few minutes, as in I went downstairs and pulled my laundry out of the dryer, that how long. Now, you can see that these are, yeah, that one's got a raisin sticking. I guess we'll have to eat that one later, eh? Okay, you can see they're sturdy enough that they're nice and springy, but they're not going to break when I transfer them. So now I'll get the wire rack. So I got my big wire rack on the counter. Now I do get oven mitts for this because I'm not one of these people that likes to grab hot baking tins with bare hands. Some people think it's tough or cool. I think it's just dumb. But anyway, so get, oops, yeah, see, be careful. Try to sort of hold them up when you turn them, because there's one that's going to go running. And oh, that just happened by accident, so I will pick that up and show you. Look at that, eh? With parchment. So that is going to be our show muffin, because it just fell off. And look at that. The entire muffin is preserved. Okay, you've got literally a couple of crumbs in the bottom, and if that's not worth 2 cents, I don't know what is. Well, these are coming loose so easily, I think I am just going to pick them up, because there's not much sticking anyways. And yes, part of it is the coconut oil in the muffins. These freeze really, really nicely, by the way. So if you make a big batch, you can, I personally just leave a few out to eat them and then freeze the rest and haul out 1 or 2 for lunches or maybe a snack or dessert or whatever. Okay, so there's the mass of them. Now what I'll do is I'll just, now that we've already peeled this one, let's crack that open for you. So you can see, not only is that still moist and warm, let's break that. They're quite sturdy, but they're also very springy and soft. Okay, they don't flake easily, they don't fall apart, and they actually taste good. So there's my Bran muffins with coconut oil and blackstrap molasses. I do hope you give these a shot. And one last word, if you can't get blackstrap, yeah, you can use normal molasses, it'll work out just fine. It'll probably work out just as well with plain oil too. Thanks for watching, hope to see you again.